The younger the soul, the more innocent the soul, because they've had less chance to sin. So the more innocent the soul that they sacrifice, the more power in the sacrifice. And that was told to me, again, by a practicing Satanist. When they kill the child...
A gut full of the whole industry. I mean, it's a very strange place, Hollywood. But it's an odd place. And you imagine all these horror stories there that you think, boy, it seems as if I'm being sacrificed over here. No, that couldn't be true. And then you realize that it is true.
Hollywood has always been a place of carefully crafted illusions, a dream factory where reality is whatever the highest paid publicist says it is. But every once in a while, the curtain snags and the world gets a glimpse of the machinery grinding behind the scenes.
You know, I had a whole bunch of weird paranoid suspicions about what the hell was going on because there was a lot of stuff I couldn't understand.
Right.
And nobody was really bothering to explain it to me. I imagined that stuff. That couldn't be the reason for why so-and-so was acting like, could it? Mm-hmm. And then you find out later on the track that you are exactly on track with a lot of this stuff. Not specifically on track, but that you could, that some of your worst nightmares were real.
For decades, one man has been screaming about that machinery, warning us that the glitz and glamour were just a thin coat of paint over something much darker. For a long time, the industry called him crazy. They called him washed up. They tried to erase him. But as the shadows in Tinseltown begin to lengthen, Mel Gibson is no longer standing alone. A new, powerful force has entered the conversation. A man with arguably more moral authority than anyone else in the business, Denzel Washington. When two titans of this magnitude decide to stop playing the game and start telling the truth, the entire foundation of the entertainment world begins to shake. This isn't just about a few bad actors or a single scandal. This is about an institutional reckoning that has been 30 years in the making. The question is no longer, is it true? The question is, who is left to stand when the house cleaning finally begins?
So what a responsibility you all have to tell the truth, not just to be first, but to tell the truth.
To understand why this is happening now, we have to go back to a rooftop in New York City in the late 1990s. At the time, Mel Gibson was the biggest movie star on the planet. He was untouchable, bankable, and beloved. But during a now legendary 1998 interview, Mel dropped a bombshell that sounded like a fever dream at the time. He described meeting a man who didn't walk, but floated sideways through a crowd. This individual, dressed entirely in black, exuded an aura so cold it physically repelled people. Mel compared the experience to an old vampire movie, describing a predator who was graceful, primal, and utterly terrifying. He spoke of horror stories he once thought were just urban legends, only to realize that he was being sacrificed at the altar of an industry he no longer recognized. At the time, the public laughed. They thought it was just Mel being eccentric. But looking back through the lens of recent revelations, those descriptions of bloodsuckers and predators who glide through elite circles don't feel like metaphors anymore. They feel like a direct eyewitness testimony of the very networks that the world is only now beginning to uncover.
No, he came to see me on a rooftop in New York. I said, hey, can I talk to you? And he said, sure. And he floated in, sideways, through a crowd of people. He was wearing black. And it was like one of those old vampire movies where they don't walk, but they glide. And he was a dancer, you know, so he has he's very, graceful.
Yeah.
And he moved sideways and he just sat down in a chair next to me. And it kind of frightened me. I tried to recall some of the most heinous things I'd ever read in this book, and he was like, oh, and he'd try and top it. And my assistant was there, and he left because he couldn't stand it anymore.
Yeah.
The air had turned cold. And then he left, and I wanted to leave. And because I knew that I didn't want to work with him.
Yeah.
And he was getting scary.
In 1993, Mel Gibson reportedly sat down with a young Corey Feldman. Feldman, who had spent his entire childhood in the belly of the beast, was ready to name names. Together, they allegedly went to the Santa Barbara Police Department to hand over a list, a specific, detailed list of individuals involved in the exploitation of minors within the industry. They expected a firestorm. They expected justice. Instead, they got silence.
I've told the police. In fact, if anybody wants to go back to 1993 when I was interviewed by the Santa Barbara Police Department, I sat there and I gave them the names. They're on record. They have all of this information.
The names didn't lead to arrests. They disappeared into a black hole of red tape and lost files. For 30 years, those names have been protected by a system that rewards loyalty and punishes truth-telling. But as Feldman recently noted in a high-profile interview, the names haven't changed. The people running the venues, the people endorsing the predators, they are all still there, hiding in plain sight. But the difference now is that the files are finally being forced open, and the names Mel tried to expose in the 90s are starting to reappear in the light of day.
There are thousands of people in Hollywood who have this same information. Why is it all on me? Why is it if I don't release the names in the next 2 months, 6 months, or a year, I'm the bad guy? I'm the victim here. I'm the one who's been abused. I'm the one who's trying to come forward and do something about it. Hold on, please, I'm sorry. There are thousands of people out there, Matt, who have this information. Any one of those child actors that went to the teenage soda pop clubs with me when I was a kid know who those people are and the people who ran it. Anybody can go back through history and look at the teen magazines and say, what was the name of that venue they were all promoting and who ran that venue and who endorsed it?
Everything changed on January 30th, when the Department of Justice finally released millions of pages of documents related to the Epstein investigation. The horror stories Mel had been telling since 1998 suddenly took on a physical, terrifying form. The files revealed a network that mirrored exactly what Mel and Corey Feldman had tried to expose decades earlier. But it was the details that didn't make the front pages that were the most chilling. Reports surfaced about the purchase of 330 gallons of sulfuric acid, a substance with a singular grim purpose in large quantities, to ensure that organic material, the kind that might hold evidence of sensitive legal matters, vanishes completely, down to the bone. When you combine this with the emails describing shrimp and women on film, the metaphors about bloodsuckers stop being movies and start being evidence. The public is finally realizing that the crazy actor wasn't hallucinating. He was describing a reality that was too dark for most people to even imagine.
There are a lot of unanswered questions that have surfaced as a result of these Epstein files. For example, Jeffrey Epstein ordered hundreds of gallons of sulfuric acid on the day that the investigation into him began. That seems odd, to send sulfuric acid to his island on the very same day that the FBI opened their investigation into child sex trafficking. What was he using the sulfuric acid for? Obviously, a lot of people are saying, oh, he was dissolving bodies. Did the FBI ever ask or investigate, confirm what exactly Epstein was doing with the sulfuric acid? Just another question. We're told definitively that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself, that he didn't have a client list, that he never trafficked to anybody else. And yet we're also hit with this straight from the Epstein files. Internal FBI communications also show, according to these documents from the DOJ, instructions to redact photographs of presidents and the Secretary of State. And I gotta tell you, I do not understand this. Why would a president of the United States or a Secretary of State get different treatment than you or I? See, this just propagates the distrust that we feel that there are two tiers of justice. Because if you're a regular everyday person and your name's in that file, oh, your photograph isn't redacted. But my goodness, if you served in government in any way, we'll protect you by redaction. Why? Why? I have heard no good explanation for this, but this is the current FBI that discusses policy. This is not something from the past. In addition to the fact that Epstein owned a ranch in New Mexico, it's not discussed as much as his island, Little St. James. It's not discussed as often as his town home in New York. But he had a ranch in New Mexico that was never searched by the FBI as part of their investigations. Why not?
We all know Joe Rogan. He's the guy who doesn't flinch when he's talking to people who claim they've seen things that would make your skin crawl. But when the conversation shifted to Ellen DeGeneres and the claims surrounding her inner circle, something felt fundamentally different. There was no pushback from Rogan, no skepticism, no joking around. There was just a heavy, uncomfortable silence. For the first time, millions of viewers weren't just watching a talk show host's reputation get questioned, they were watching a mask begin to slip in real time. Once the dots started being connected by Rogan and his guests to the alleged connection of Ellen to the Epstein circle, the internet didn't just walk away. It rushed back to revisit 20 years of footage with completely different eyes.
She's shook. She's shook right now.
Go to your roots. You're a comic. Stand by it, man.
Well, there's several other articles written about her being an
being mean.
That. Yeah, because
listen,
people capitalize.
I've heard about it. I've heard of it. It's, in entertainment, it's all around.
Don't you also think that she's one of those tooth and claw, get to the top? That's why she became Ellen in the first place, and that makes a lot of enemies.
The rabbit hole goes even deeper when you look into the leaked Epstein flight logs and contact lists. It's no secret that Ellen's social circle overlaps with some of the most influential and, subsequently, most scrutinized people in the world. But it was the food language in the leaked emails that caught the attention of the Rogan crew. We've all heard the theories about certain food words being used as codes, but there was a new word that started appearing in the files: jerky. Rogan and his guests analyzed these emails, pointing out that multimillionaires and billionaires were having incredibly detailed conversations about jerky in a way that simply didn't make sense. They were using language that didn't square with how food actually gets eaten or talked about by normal people. It felt like a glimpse into a secret dialect used by those who believe they are above the law.
How many grown men email each other about getting pizza, or about how tasty the pizza was, or about how many slices you can slice a pizza up into, or how many people will be at the pizza party? Then there's another email. It stuck out to me because it has the word Red Hook in it. Someone was emailing asking if another guy can go to Red Hook for a pizza meal later. It turns out that Red Hook is the address of where Jeffrey Epstein's Virgin Islands businesses are domiciled. It's on the marina where you would leave in the boat to get to his island. And someone was emailing asking if another man can go to where Jeffrey Epstein's business is domiciled for a pizza meal. They're using food language in ways that does not square with how food actually gets eaten or talked about.
For a woman whose entire billion-dollar legacy was built on the foundation of being kind, the appearance of her name within the dark pages of the Epstein files is a devastating blow to her credibility. Regardless of the specific context of her inclusion, the sheer proximity to one of history's most notorious figures represents a massive failure of accountability for someone who positioned herself as Hollywood's moral compass. It raises a glaring, uncomfortable question. How does the Queen of Nice find herself in the same social orbit as a predator like Jeffrey Epstein? For years, she preached transparency and goodness to her audience, yet when it comes to her ties to the world's most scrutinized inner circle, there is only a cold, calculated silence. This isn't just about a list, it's about the staggering irony of an elite icon who asks her viewers for their trust while her name lingers in a ledger of shadows, proving that her brand of kindness may have only ever been a shield for the company she chose to keep.
Earlier I mentioned some conspiracies, and I want to talk to you about what the internet has been cooking up, and this one is insane. I need to address something that's been blowing up online since these files started dropping, because every time these documents like this get released, the internet does what the internet does. So there's a claim circulating right now that the Epstein files reveal Ellen DeGeneres as, and I'm quoting this directly from the posts, Hollywood's most prolific cannibal, that she consumed human flesh. People are sharing distorted images of her face, writing paragraphs about underground dystopias, calling her actually a vampire. Now, Ellen DeGeneres is named in the Epstein documents, and that part is real. Her name appears in the broader index of over 300 high-profile individuals that show up across the investigative materials. Flight logs, communications, third-party interviews, peripheral records.
They don't want you to remember what Sandra Bullock actually said on Ellen's couch. They don't want you to look into the penis facial. The adrenochrome theory suggests that the global elite don't just stop at skin creams. It alleges they harvest a specific chemical compound from the blood of the young to achieve a state of permanent vitality and high that no other drug can provide. While the mainstream media calls this a basement-dwelling fantasy, the Sandra Bullock interview provided a rare televised moment of vampiric transparency. If the elite are openly admitting to using the cells of infants to keep their faces from wrinkling on a daytime talk show, it's not a huge leap to wonder what's happening behind the closed doors of private clinics and underground labs.
Okay, let's talk about this facial that you're obsessed with. How many, did you get the whole cast of Ocean's 8 to do
Not
this?
everybody.
Okay, and, good, smart ones.
Just those that I thought would appreciate it.
Okay, explain what it is.
Well, it's this way in which one forces through microneedling. It's like a little roller with these, some of you, I think many of you know it, and it pushes through the skin and ruptures the collagen and then boosts it. You look like a burn victim for a day, but then it pushes the
What are you pushing into the skin, Sandra? Carrie? What are you pushing into the skin?
Well, you push in whatever the facialist would like to insert into your pores.
But what is it?
It is an extraction from a piece of skin that came from a young person far, far away, and they somehow figured out how to extract.
It's foreskin from a Korean baby.
Another controversy erupted when Ellen was spotted sitting courtside at a football game with former President George W. Bush. They were laughing and joking like old friends. Given the political climate, the backlash was immediate. Ellen tried to get ahead of it by giving a monologue on her show about civility and being friends with people you disagree with. Be kind to everyone, she said. But to a public that was already seeing the mask slip, it didn't feel like a lesson in kindness. It felt like another billionaire defending another billionaire. It felt like a display of the elite class protecting one another, regardless of their public-facing politics. The Be Kind shield was officially broken, and the public wasn't buying it anymore.
Finally tonight, we thought we'd address kindness, civility, and politics, which don't seem to be mentioned in the same sentence much these days. It took a greeting on the gridiron between former President George W. Bush and Ellen DeGeneres to bring it into sharp focus.
It may not seem like a big deal for a celebrity to attend a football game, but I never leave my house, so it is a big deal.
Ellen and her wife, Portia de Rossi, were invited to sit in the private box of Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones. Former President George W. Bush and his wife Laura were also there.
But during the game, they showed a shot of George and me laughing together, and so people were upset. They thought, why is a gay Hollywood liberal sitting next to a conservative Republican president? Didn't even notice I'm holding the brand new iPhone 11. But a lot of people were mad, and they did what people do when they're mad. They tweet, but here's one tweet that I loved. This person says, Ellen and George Bush together makes me have faith in America again.
But instead of getting into the fray on social media, Ellen used the moment to preach about civility.
Here's the thing. I'm friends with George Bush. In fact, I'm friends with a lot of people who don't share the same beliefs that I have. We're all different, and I think that we've forgotten that that's okay that we're all different. When I say be kind to one another, I don't mean only the people that think the same way that you do. I mean be kind to everyone. Doesn't matter.
We are now entering a period of history that many are calling the Great Reckoning. For decades, Hollywood was a high-wire act where the only rule was don't get out of line. If you stayed quiet, you were rewarded with glamour and status. If you spoke up, you were pushed into professional exile. But that system of protection is starting to crack. The release of the files, the success of independent truth-telling, and the alliance of figures like Gibson and Washington have created a storm that the industry can no longer hide from. We are seeing a shift in public perception, where the first accusation is often seen as a confession, and the people who were called crazy are being revealed as the only ones who were truly awake. The Dream Factory is facing a nightmare of its own making, and the vampires are finally running out of places to hide.
The fear of these literally demonic human beings that are running the world and don't give a fuck about human lives and enjoy watching people being tortured, enjoy watching people participating in ritual sacrifice of people, and they do it in order to show that you're a part of a team, and we know that has always historically been a real thing, and it's been something that you look at in history, you go, God, it's so sick, it's so twisted, it's so disgusting, and everybody wants to think, thank God that's not happening now. But then when you realize, that might have been happening now.
A person commented saying, Gibson does not care about his career. He wants to bring these demonic bastards to justice. Another one added, the release of these files have given insane credence to the saying, first accusation is a confession. These guys have been calling people crazy for decades. And turns out the crazy people are the ones calling everyone else crazy.
We deserve much more and much better, and there is absolutely no adequate excuse the governor or mayor can make for this gross mismanagement and failure to preemptively deal with what they knew was coming. Was it incompetence? Was it indifference? Complacency? Carelessness?
Yes.
Was it negligence? Absolutely.
As the dust continues to settle on these revelations, we have to ask ourselves, how much more is still buried beneath the floorboards of the entertainment world? For 30 years, Mel Gibson has been the canary in the coal mine, warning us that the air was toxic long before we felt the effects. Now, with Denzel Washington adding his voice to the call for truth, the momentum feels unstoppable. Is this the beginning of the house cleaning Mel predicted back in the 90s? Or will the system find a new way to reshape the narrative? One thing is certain, the conversation has changed forever. We are no longer looking at Hollywood as a factory of dreams, but as an institution in desperate need of a soul. What do you think? Was Mel trying to warn us all along, or is this just the tip of a much larger iceberg? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe as we continue to track the truth behind the curtain. The story isn't over, it's just getting started.